Good morning, Teachers on Fire. My name is Tim Cavey. I'm the host of the Teachers on Fire podcast, blogger, educator, new assistant principal, and I'm honored to be hosting 3 STEM and STEAM educators this morning. We're going to be talking about what STEM and STEAM education looks like during the time of COVID. What are the wins? What are the opportunities? Where do we go from here? I'm going to start by asking each one to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their context in education, starting with Renee.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Renee Wells, and this is my 7th year as a STEAM teacher. Actually, I promoted myself. When I got the job, I was a STEM teacher. And I've promoted myself to STEAM teacher because we can't have the STEM without the arts.
That's right.
But this is actually my 27th year teaching. So I'm pretty excited that I got the chance 7 years ago to reinvent myself in the teaching world.
Awesome. Thanks, Renee. And Jesus.
Hi, I'm Jesus Huerta. I'm a 6th grade, was 5th grade teacher last year. There's a story to that. Been teaching 7 years. For the last 6 years, I've been multiple subject, and just because of that doesn't mean I can't blend technology and everything else into that classroom. And that's been my goal to have my students have access to as much different high-level technology as possible.
Right. Awesome. And Paul Gordon.
Howdy, everyone. I am Paul Gordon. I am a middle school computer science / STEAM teacher. I've been previously a 5th grade teacher for the last 6 years, and then this year I transitioned into this new role. So this is a new endeavor for me, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm so glad all 3 of you made it this morning, and it's just a lot of fun to connect with educators, meet some new people, hear different perspectives. And STEAM and STEM learning isn't necessarily my wheelhouse, but it's an area that I think every educator should be looking at and engaging with on some level. So I look forward to learning from each of you. I've got a few questions lined up for you. I'm interested as we get started here on just your thoughts on face-to-face, hybrid, remote learning. What does that look like for you at the moment, if you haven't already mentioned it? And where are the opportunities? What are the wins just in that particular window as we look at what learning looks like in your context? Renee?
Well, I've been doing the distance learning since March. Yeah,
wow.
Straight through the summer too. And as a matter of fact, I don't think I've had a day off since this whole thing started. But you know what? I feel like I'm rocking it through the distance learning. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to gather up the materials to make the take-home kits for all 793 of the students at my school. Yeah, that was really awesome. It's a lot of work. But I said totally can do. And there was even a period of time during the summer where they didn't have the materials that I provided, and we were still able to rock it with just the stuff that they could gather at home. So, I'm just working and doing the best I can to try to keep that experience, live and continuous for my students, for sure.
Renee, tell us what that take-home kit looks like very quickly, if you don't mind. Like, are we talking STEAM materials and resources, or what does that look like?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I guess I've got a lot of things around me, and usually within hand's reach, but not today. So basically, I teach K through 6. So I spent some time to develop lessons that were doable, via distance learning. And then once I had that plan, I just went down the list and gathered up whatever they needed. I mean, I don't want to ever assume that my students have something. I'm 100% about accessibility. So if I needed to include a piece of white paper or an empty toilet paper roll in their kit, so be it. String. I've been using stickers for tape because that's an easy way to put, tape in the hands of the kids. Paper plates. And I've even done the pipettes, a penny. It just kind of depends on what grade level they are and what activity I'm trying to roll with them.
Got it. So I hear a lot of opportunities there for design projects, design challenges. Look forward to hearing more about that. Hey, Susan, what about you? Remind me again if I missed it in your intro, but face-to-face, hybrid, and remote, and how do you see sort of improving in that environment, and how's that going for you?
So right now we're still 100% distance learning, remote learning. The area we live in Imperial County is a hotspot for COVID. We're at 10% infectivity. I mean, it's 9.9. Might as well just say 10. I guess we got to be like at 7 to even think about going towards hybrid. Just quick note. I mean, with hybrid, my big concern about it is, being face to face near the kids, trying not to get sick, but also what are the planning and teaching expectations for me, since I have to plan in person and then, remote. So that's one concern. But right now, you know what? We're doing what we can. Same thing as Renee. I really like that she said, I don't assume they have anything. And for my group, it's particularly true because I teach in a border town. So I have students that go back and forth. Even right now with everything happening, they might spend the weekends in town, but they cross the border and they're in school, air quotes, during the week, but they're in Mexico. So there's a lot of assumptions I can't make. But we've been, the awesome thing is, and I mentioned it before, I was 5th, 6th grade. The group that I had last year, I went with them in 6th grade. So basically we hit the ground running. I was in communication with them over the summer. I let them know over the summer, like, hey, I'm going to be your teacher again. So I didn't have to do all that work of getting them used to what are my norms, what are my expectations. And the awesome thing is that I sent home 3D printers. They each have a kit at home that they built.
Oh, wow.
So there's about, let's say 23 to 25, I can't remember the exact number, that they have them. The ones that didn't, either the parents never replied, so I guess they didn't want it. And I had two girls, which I was hoping they would say yeah, because I wanted every girl to have an opportunity, because text not push towards them, right? But they said no, and I bothered them, and come on, I would joke around with them, like, come on, hey, you could do this, but no, they didn't change their mind. Big road bump is some of these kids couldn't finish building it. So what I've had parents do is set up a time. They come leave it in my driveway. I go out there with my mask and hazmat suit on, just my mask, and I clean it up, and I finish building it for them. And the parents are like, is that okay? They didn't finish it. And I'm like, that's not the point. But I wanted them to experience the build because I love building things. Renee's shaking it. Nodding her head like, oh yeah. But it's to design and print at home. And one student came and she looked like upset because, she couldn't fix it. She couldn't balance it, which Paul knows, Renee, that's one of the hardest things. You can get one already built, but if you don't understand how to balance it and it doesn't self-balance, you could be there for a month and be like, I'm just going to toss this because I don't want to do it anymore. And then to teach them that over a camera is very difficult, because if it was in person, I could just point at something and go, no, turn it the opposite direction. And for them, they see my screen, they're like, wait, what am I doing? But this week I got like 6 printers ready for them. And the parents have been messaging me, telling me, you know what, the kids are so happy. Can I print whatever I want? I'm like, yeah, go crazy for right now. But I told them, make sure you leave some material left for what we're working on, which is we're working on the Makeable project through Print Lab. And I have a student that he did an assistive tool already and 3D printed it. He sent me the picture. I haven't shared it yet on Twitter. But he did it from scratch, and it's awesome. I'm like, I would have to watch the tutorial. I don't know how to do it like that. And I have another student that I did share her tweet. She 3D printed a Majora's Mask. I don't know where she got the software because her dad's helping her, but it's like super high quality. It's one of the harder things to print, because I've tried to print that thing before.
Wow.
So right now that's the opportunity my students have, because my county again is, and I've mentioned it before, I think, Tim, last time we talked, there's a lot of poverty in this area. There's not a lot of opportunities. So I'm not telling them to leave, but I'm trying to show them, look, there's a lot out there. Think about, what you want to do. It's not just whatever's available here in the Valley.
Right. Fantastic. Well, you're starting to get into some of where I want to go next, which are what are some of the big wins of STEAM in the home environment. But first, Paul, I feel like you are also remote or distance learning. Is that the case?
That is the case. So we are fully distant until at least January 11th. Our district made that statement within the last 2 weeks, saying that we're going to make sure that we're distant until January 11th, and then we're going to take it from there. Which I feel they're taking the science and they're taking the proper protocol, and they're going step by step by step, doing practices and tryouts with hybrid to make sure that before they just fully send everyone into it, they know exactly what is needed and how it's supposed to be done. So I give Palm Springs Unified a lot of credit for that. But yeah, so with distant, we've been distant ever since March, as everyone else has. But I've transitioned from going from just 5th grade in a self-contained class to doing middle school computer science all the way down to TK STEAM. So, I mean, there's been a huge difference going from computer science all the way down to TK. But that's just with the growing pains and learning pains of everything that's going on. I'm not fancy enough, or I don't have enough money, or whatever it is, that I can't send a 3D printer home to everyone. However, no, but we make do with what we have. Yeah. And I have a couple of printers myself, so I've been able to give that to and use that with the students at home. And then we get to do distribution days in as well, where we send it home with the kids.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Awesome. And apologies if I missed some of that information on the first round. One of the things I've noticed about hosting these is I'm thinking about so many things at once that sometimes I miss some of the details the first time I hear them. Can we do a quick go around? I'd like to hear about the LMS that your school or district is using, or what are you relying on? In my 8th grade context, we sort of use, and we are face-to-face, by the way, but we use a combination of Seesaw and Google Classroom. I wrote about that recently because some teachers sort of resist the idea of adding a second LMS, but I think they work really well together. Renee, what are you using in your context?
Well, I try to keep it pretty simple. Zoom.
No LMS at all? Like no Seesaw, no Schoology or anything?
I need to expand on that. My district is using Canvas.
Oh, Canvas. Okay.
Yeah. So I did put in some really simple modules in Canvas for all the grade levels. It's basically just, all right, I gotta tell you guys, I bit into the Bitmoji craze.
Why not? The kids love it.
The cutest Bitmoji STEAM classroom, this interactive with art links and music links and online build links and so there's that. And then I just pretty much kept it simple. The pages are just the list of materials and a button to join my Zoom. But I do have the school dojo from last year, even though my district transitioned to Parent Square. And so basically it's just kind of like been a joke for me and my admin because, I reach all 793 students. So they've all got my Zoom IDs, and then they can all message me through Canvas, and they can message me through Dojo. And then every once in a while I get some emails, and basically at the end of the day, I've got to set aside about a good hour to respond to all those questions and messages from kids and parents, because at a time like this, keeping the lines of communication open is super, super important. So, but my main go-to is Zoom, because it's how I reach the kids. It's how we do our thing.
Yeah. No, for sure. That makes sense. So what I heard was Canvas and Dojo. primarily. If you did have to, if you did have to mention one, I guess that was a little reluctant. So I hear what you're saying about Zoom and just real time connection. And Zoom gives so many amazing opportunities, in terms of breakout rooms and everything else that they are rolling out. Jesus, is it the same in your district in terms of LMS?
So for junior high to high school, they use Canvas.
Okay.
And then elementary, it's basically Google Classroom and or Seesaw. I use Google Classroom, but what I do a little different is like if the kids need to get in contact with me, they know that if they go into my Zoom meeting, everything's on my phone, and my son will go, "How many notifications do you get?" And I'm like, "It's my go-to work tool, my phone."
Yeah.
Because he'll see it like if we're hanging out and it lights up, and I'm like, "Hold on, okay, no, it's not important. Okay, no, it's not important." He's like, "Dad," I'm like, "I know, let me leave it alone." But there's times that I see it, a certain app, I'm like, "Okay, hold on, let me see what this is." So the kids know if they jump onto our permanent, meeting link, I'm usually on in a minute or two. If I'm not on after 5 minutes, it's because I'm in the middle of something that I can't, jump in and join you. Also, they know that if they have a specific question, to leave a private comment in the assignment. Because if it says comment, most of the time the kids put done. And I'm like, okay, that's fine if they leave it like that. So if they put a private comment, it's like, okay, they don't need to meet. They just got a quick question. I just reply back, ASAP, sometimes off my phone, and then we're good to go. But for parent communication, I use two also. I use a combination, Remind and Google Voice. I feel like Google Voice was way more effective. I've looked and I can't figure out how to send like a bulk message. So sometimes I have to copy paste everything, but and then translate it to English and Spanish, which isn't too hard. I just use Google Translate. I let that do it for me. But with Google Voice, it's been very effective. Parents will I'll get a call and I have their number saved and it'll pop up and say, Melanie's grandma. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it's funny because it'll say you're getting a call from, and it'll say the name I have. Do you accept? I feel like I'm getting called from prison sometimes. You know how you see in the movies, it's like, do you accept these charges? And I'm like, sure. Is it really a parent, or am I getting, a call from Sentinel of prison or what? But you know what? I think that's helped parents so they don't, worry like, well, when is he going to talk to me? I'm always, I tell them, I know I send you guys messages all the time, 2 or 3 times a week. I'm sending just updates or bulletins or, hey, this is what's going on, or remind your students of this, or individually. Then I tell them it's just that I can't be the one there to tell the kid, hey, you know what? Did you finish your work, or is this going on, or this is missing, or this is late? I have to send it to them, and they have to be basically like my proxy and go and tell them, hey, you know what? You're not doing your work, or you're missing something, or this is not complete. You turned it in. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I've been using, and I feel like it's been very effective.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, one thing that people forget, I think sometimes the parent community looks at us as distance educators and thinks, oh, they must have so much extra time. But I mean, there are so many more demands on us, like the communication required to make this all happen. We've got to work overtime, I feel like.
You know what? I don't think I've tracked this much data since I worked at NASA. So no, I'm just kidding. I'm just always like entering information, and I was a dispatcher before I was a teacher, and I did tons of data entry. So the 10 key, I was just fast with it, and now I'm like, oh my god. But that's just part of it. We have to track them because, like I said, we're not there, so we got to see them in a different way.
Paul, which LMS are you using, and how's that going, that part of it?
Yeah, so we're using, so it depends because I'm at a TK8 school, so it depends on the lower elementary grades. They're using Seesaw, and then the upper elementary and middle school, they're all using Google Classroom. Myself included, I'm using the Google Classroom, but to communicate with parents, it's all Class Dojo, and then to be able to hear from them is through another thing. I use Google Voice as well. It's been a great little addition. It's free, and I also give a nice little local number because I'm a transplant. I've lived here for 7 years, but yet I've yet to change my phone number. So if I ever tried to call or do anything like that, it's obviously looks like a spam call. So using a Google Voice number has always been a little great one that makes it a local number They feel a lot more. They feel a lot more comfortable answering it that way. But one thing that I've heard and I've seen from parents is that when we started using way too many things, so I started out by doing Google Classroom. I have all my stuff in Google Classroom. I add my grades in Google Classroom. The students see the grades in Google Classroom in their profile. However, parents didn't like seeing that because they had to get their own account to be able to connect to it. So what our district uses is Synergy. And so what we'd have to do is I take all the grades from Google Classroom, transfer it over to Synergy. However, that requires essentially 5 minutes of just staring at two screens and making sure that I don't mess up when I'm comparing one line to the next line and make sure that the students' names are actually in the correct order. So I was very reluctant to go from Google Classroom over to Synergy, and parents would get upset because they're like, wait, which one's the grades? Where is it supposed to be? And I've been noticing that whenever a student turns in an assignment, whenever it may be, I get an email about 3 minutes later saying, okay, I turned it in. Where's my grade? I've been finding that out a lot more. And it's very clear. It's funny. Some of them are very specific. Saying, so on like a Tuesday, I'll get a submission at like 8 p.m. They go, I need this graded by Friday at 3 p.m. and I'm like,
when they give you deadlines.
Yeah, so it's like, wait, who's the captain now type deal. and so when the kids do that, it's like I always have to call them out saying, are you about to get in trouble at 3 p.m. on Friday? Are you going to get grounded and not be able to use video games over the weekend because you didn't do your stuff on time? And they're like, yeah. I go, okay. And I'll be like, okay, I'll grade it at 3:30.
That's some pressure for you, Paul.
It is. The parents, they have 100% access now where they never really realized how much went into it on that end. So when I start doing things at on Google Classroom, I'd start putting the grades in there, and then I'd try to transfer them over. But parents didn't like that because they all needed a Google account or a Google Classroom Guardian account to be able to do that, to view it. So I somehow found a way to actually do Google Classroom integration into Synergy, which is awesome because now all I need to do is put all my grades into Google Classroom. And then when I go over to Synergy, all I have to do is press sync, and every single grade that I've ever put into Google Classroom transfers right over to our grade book. So that has made my life so much easier because all I need to do is input those grades once. I've always been a person where I had a hard time keeping a physical grade book, because I said, why am I writing it down on a piece of paper to only have to put it on the computer program about an hour later? Mm-hmm. And so to me, I always just kept that digital one. So yeah. And that's just personal style and flair on that one. However, so that really has changed a lot, is just by the parents being able to see it. And I've been hearing that the parents are actually quite overwhelmed with a lot of these different LMSs that we're using. Mm-hmm. I've been seeing that parents that have kids in the lower grade, they're using Seesaw. So they're just trying to learn that program. However, if they have a kid in upper elementary, they're learning Google Classroom, and they're having a lot of trouble just understanding all these different types of programs. And I mean, that's not including the stuff that teachers are assigning asynchronously or on their own time, or their math programs. And it's all these programs that we normally would have used in the classroom. However, the transparency is 100% now. Hmm. And with having that huge transparency, parents are now understanding and learning every single thing that goes into the classroom and what we're doing and how we do it and our styles and what is required of us. Yeah. And we've actually gotten some fun little emails saying, stop sending me to different websites. They want everything streamlined because they're still trying to understand it all. And I find that very interesting that the parents are, and I call it it's a catch-22, because I love how the parents are trying to understand and learn everything that's going on. However, these are all the different things that it's not like we're going to just randomly assign different websites and LMSs just for the fun of it. We're doing it because there's actual purpose to them.
Right. That's so interesting. I haven't heard of that. One of the things I actually enjoy about Google Classroom is that parents get to see those Guardian updates. So they're keeping tabs on their child, as it were, but they're not seeing every grade or mark or assessment. And your school is opening it right up. And so I see pros and cons there. I love that parents are completely in the know. I mean, but never any surprises by the time you come to the end of a reporting period. But on the other hand, I mean, parents like to get pretty involved sometimes. I can see parents really like critiquing every mark or looking at, individual assignments. I'm also a believer that teachers shouldn't feel a pressure to mark everything, to grade everything.
Right.
I think that's a sort of a big traditional misunderstanding of what learning is all about. It's not this like, students aren't our workers that we pay with wages, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into learning that we don't have to necessarily speak to. But this is a STEAM conversation, not an assessment conversation. So I'm going to stop.
But I just want to say, Tim, that it's important that you say what you just said, because we're teachers, but you're an assistant principal, and to hear that from you, I think is super important because. Like I just saw in the morning video, this woman did a TikTok talking about she doesn't assign homework, and people are like, "Oh, it's controversial." Like, why is it controversial? I don't give homework. Paul, do you give homework?
I do not.
Renee, there's no proof that it works.
Everything you give, everything you guys give right now is homework,
Right?
But even before that, I just didn't give homework because I read too much saying that it doesn't work. So. But just to go back and head back towards the same thing, I just want to say I'm glad you said what you said, Tim, because it's important for them to understand that, you're assigning things. You don't have to write everything down to know if the student is succeeding or not.
Exactly. Yeah. So we want to move on, and I really want to take advantage of your expertise in STEM and STEAM. And so the next question really is, what are the big wins of STEAM in this environment? What's been a big win for you? We've talked about some of the opportunities. I always think when it comes to passion projects and Genius Hour projects and that sort of work, and I do some of that with my home learner. So I have a class of 25 eighth graders, homeroom, and I don't spend a whole lot of time with them because I did mention the admin responsibilities, but 2 of those students right now are still at home. And I think in a lot of ways, they miss out on the class environment, but they do have certain wins. And one of the wins for them is they've got access to their full kitchen,
Right.
any workspaces, the garage, all of the tools. So when it comes to a lot of these projects that they want to take on, they've actually got more at their disposal than a lot of the students at school. So along those lines, what do you see as some of the big wins of STEAM learning, and maybe speak from your own practice? Renee, what's been a win for you?
I've got a long list of wins.
Nice.
I'm just really blessed in that regard. And I agree with everything you just said. It's, I mentioned earlier that we can't count on our kids having certain things at home. I ran into a pickle recently where I suggested to the kids that they, gather up their empty toilet paper rolls. And one of my students said, well, I don't have any of those. And so, I took advantage of the Zoom and the chat, and I said, oh, really? So, what do you guys got going on at the house? I mean, do you need anything? And he was like, no, we just use wipes. I was like, oh, okay. But I love when they do find things. And I recently did an activity with my 6th graders. Their focus is sort of on body systems right now. And we did a pseudo egg drop. And I didn't want the kids to actually use an egg. Everybody's stuck at home, and right now things are tough. And so even an egg to me seemed a waste. So we sort of did plan B, and we made origami paper balloons to stand in for the eggs. And then they had to make something to protect the brain. And it was just so fun that they had all these resources. I mean, the shoe boxes came out, and brains got wrapped in T-shirts and socks, and then they all sent me videos, proof of life, and I spent a whole day laughing because their challenge was to build something for their pretend egg and then throw it against the wall, and then take their little paper, balloon origami out and, see how dented and stuff it was. And so, I did that activity with 4 totally packed 6th grade classes. So that's 4 times 30, and it's Saturday, and I'm too tired to calculate the number, but it was super great that I didn't get not one message from any parent about, Mrs. Wells, why is my kid throwing stuff against the walls for your class? And, I think that was just really a fun Benny, because had we been at school, it would have gone down totally differently. They would have, used only the materials that I provided for them. And I don't know, at school, I feel like that activity might have been a little bit more limited.
Right.
But doing something like that at home, even if they have minimal resources, the big win for me was getting the students to look around their house and their rooms and to see things differently, to see their shirts and socks as padding, to see their shoe boxes, as something purposeful. And I really like nobody likes being at home. Okay. I'm just going to say that, we don't like the conditions, but I really feel like I wouldn't have gotten the same thing out of it with the students had we been in the classroom. And so for me, the big win about doing STEAM at home is having that sort of open forum to get creative and to see the things they have around them differently. By the way, I have to tell you guys something totally funny that came out of that. It's totally PG-13 too. I had a student go back to his teacher after my STEAM class of doing origami and tell his teacher that he had a really good time doing orgasms.
Oh. Oh man.
Did we have a disclaimer at the beginning of the show?
You just can't ask stuff like that. He was so excited to tell his 6th grade teacher what we did in our STEAM class.
I feel like HR is coming your way.
I know. And you know what? I know his mom, thank goodness, happens to be one of our cafeteria, queens at this point. They're all kings and queens in the cafeteria. God bless their efforts. And so I was just really thankful I didn't get any kind of funky messages from his mom after that. But, let the fun continue and let the experiences grow, right?
Wow, that I don't know if any of our stories can top that, Renee. That's incredible. Jesus, over to you. What's been a big win for you? You've already talked about the 3D printing opportunities. I love this positive angle because there really is so much to complain about right now. But what's been really working well, and maybe share a recent highlight?
Mine's not as racy as Renee's. So Renee, you already took the crown for that. Not gonna try to go RX rated on my stars. You know what? I'll another hot take for you, I guess. But yeah, there's days that I'm like, man, it's really hard for me to sit down and enter the information. Meeting the kids, planning, no, but it's the follow up, the information part. I think that's what kind of gets me down. But the printer thing. I mean, I know Paul was joking earlier. He's like, oh, well, I mean, we don't have the money for one and to send to every student. The thing is, we had put this plan in motion like a year ago, before COVID was anything. And we were going to put a print farm in my classroom. So my kids would have access during the day. And then we would have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different groups, maybe one different group every day, Monday to Friday, but it could not be any of my students since they would have access, right? This was after school enrichment thing, so ACES, ours is called Sparks. That was the plan. And then everything happened, and speaking to the director, who's awesome, I'll name drop her, Brisa Huerta Price, no relation. She was like, they're going to sit there for a year because we're probably not going to release any of this new equipment if we're only doing hybrid and there's only small numbers of kids there for after school enrichment. So Renee knows me, and so I took my shot. Said, hey, what if we send them with kids and I teach them virtually? I've built several printers. I can do it. And I thought she's going to laugh in my face. And she goes, let's do it. I love the idea. Take pictures of everything. And I have. And, you know, the wins for me, I mean, that's already a big enough win. I'm like, wow, I had that opportunity. I was given that responsibility. And now I'm trying to, you know, push it even further by helping some of the students finish their builds. But I had one student that she's on the spectrum. She has, you know, needs. Academically, she's just different. I don't want to say she's weak academically. She's different. She learns differently. She picked it up on Friday, sent me pictures Sunday of things they were printing, and she goes, yeah, me and my dad built this. And
Brilliant.
that's a common theme with a lot of the kids. They're like, can my parent help me? Because what are they used to? Parents not supposed to help them with the project. And I'm like, yeah, do it together.
Yeah.
And
As it
there's
should
a grandma.
be.
Yeah, there's a grandma. She's like, I'm 67 and I'm learning 3D printing at 67. And she told a group of parents, because we had a meeting, if I'm learning it, you guys can learn it. I had one student tell me, because I do a Flipgrid that's not public, like I moderate it so they can just basically spill their guts. They can talk about whatever they want. And I do it every couple of weeks. And one of them said, you know what? My dad, I spend time with him. He's very hands-on, and I've never really been like one to ask him, can I help you build that? Let's put that desk together. She's a girl. That's why she doesn't think it's for her, because again, it's not promoted towards her. She goes, he helped me and we had the best time. Like, we connected. Those two stories, and there's more stories. Those two already, I did my job for the year, basically. I'm like, all right, cool, I did it. Yeah. And just some of the connections they've had, some of the comments, you know, they're like, oh, for Christmas, I'm going to print this for my cousin. Can I print something for somebody now? I'm like, it's yours. And that's the thing. I don't tell them, take care of the school's printer. I tell them, take care of your printer. Use your printer. Respect your printer. It's yours. And they're like, can I have it in my room? It's yours. Put it in the kitchen, or if you want right next to the blender. I don't care. I mean, it's yours. I just tell them how to be safe. And that's the first thing we did before they even picked up the kids. So can every school have this opportunity? No. But can it be done? Yeah, it can be done. And if anybody listening wants to know, it's an under $200 printer. It's a complicated build. But if you wanted one that's not as complicated and prints even bigger, you're talking $400. So now it's like, well, you know, we hear 3D printing, we think, oh, it's $1,000 machine at least. No, the ones that I use, that Paul uses also, he uses the same ones. I think, Renee, you might have some of the similar ones, the Creality brand. They're workhorses. And the main part, the heating element with the nozzle, I had one mess up a week ago, $30. I'm not going to ask the students to pay that, but you know, for me at home, or them, if they decide to follow it later on as a hobby, they can see, you know, these open source printers, there's a reason that they're so popular. They're easy to replace parts, it's not expensive, and so on. So right now I have a bunch of kids sending me pictures finally, because, you know, now they understand how to print it and all that. And then they forget. They're like, oh, because I wanted to put something else. I'm going to send you like a group picture of like these things I printed. Yeah. But yeah, and my next plan is to steal Renee's idea. Sorry, Renee, about making little kits to go home. But I want to make sure I follow my district safety protocols. Yeah, it's more like I got it back here. I'm taking it. But if they're like, no, we can't do that, then I'll respect that. I mean, they already gave me this huge opportunity. And then again, you know, we're doing Makeable or Makeable. We're heading towards where they're going to design their own from scratch in groups assistive technology, and some have already built one this week. And one said, you know, the one for the jar, my grandma's hands are bigger. Can I make it bigger? Because I already finished it, but I want to make it bigger for her hands. I'm like, you have someone that this is going to be for already? And this is just practice towards the final. He's like, yeah, do you mind? I'm like, don't ask me, just do it. It's your printer. I told him again, it's yours. I go, please have your grandma tell me how it works for her. What else can I ask for? I mean, and then, okay, so where does this go towards a, multiple subject classroom? They do Flipgrids on it. They write about it. We discuss it during class. They do presentations. They're always talking about these things, and having a high population of ELs, English language learners, they go back home and mainly they speak Spanish. So I'm always pushing for them to use their English with me, talk about it, talk, and write. So it's not just like, oh, so they just print stuff. No, they have to reflect. They have to talk about what they want to do with it in the future. What problems is it creating? What is it solving, and so on. So I know I'm always talking like, oh, they're doing nothing. But there's a back end to that. I know Renee does also, and so does Paul, where we sneak in these other, other subject areas, and the kids don't know that they're working on their subject areas. That's the secret to STEAM and project-based learning. The kids are like, I'm doing all things. Oh, can you write about it? Yeah. Can I write more than 5 paragraphs?
Right.
Don't make me all cry at the same time, guys, because that's what I want to hear. Or can I do more than 7 slides? Of course you can. And then now the kids tell each other, why are you asking? Just do it. And I tell them, just don't go too crazy because you have to record it. You have a 10-minute limit in Flipgrid.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll figure it out. And I'm like, well, I'm not crying, you're crying. That's what's happening,
When kids ask if they can do more, I mean, not just that's music to our ears as teachers, right? We're going to go over to Paul, but I wanted to share this question. I don't know if you saw it. Shannon is asking, do you think kids are more engaged remotely because there are fewer eyes on them, fewer critical or competitive students? Is that a win, do you think, for some students, Paul?
You know what? I do. I see that the students that are highly motivated, the ones that are getting their independence, that is a huge win for them. And this has been a tipping point, and I've been seeing this happen all the way from TK all the way to 8th grade. And the students that are motivated and the students are learning their independence. We've been going through a shift in these last couple of this last decade, saying that students are becoming more dependent on the teacher. They're more dependent on their parent. And we've been seeing a lot of things where the students are no longer independent. We see them that they're like, oh, well, I need help with this page, or I need you to help me tie my shoes in context type deal.
Yeah.
But now it's they have to do it on their own. And if they don't do it, no one else is doing it for them.
Right.
We've created, in the way that our education system has been the last decade, is that we've been finding ways to help these students, but we've been giving them crutches throughout the way. I've seen this as a huge win to going back to students are independent and they are responsible for their own thoughts, their beliefs, their feelings, and they're also their actions. We've been seeing that the students that normally are doing those independent things, they're doing just fine. However, the students that the most needy of the students, where they are most dependent on the someone else, those are the kids that are struggling. I know my wife's a 1st grade teacher, and we see students between the two of us where there's a 6-year-old holding a baby while the parents are at work. And it's like, you know what? It's hard to find a win out of that. Mm-hmm. And at 6 years old, I know I wasn't worried about taking care of my siblings. I'm worried about what color Play-Doh I want to eat or which glue that I want to drink. I mean, like, those are the things that I was worried about. I wasn't worried about changing diapers or making sure that a human stays alive. Like, the priorities for a lot of people are different. And for students like that, it's hard to find a win on a situation like that. But you know what? The thing is that the kids that's already an independent kid. The student there is responsible. They're doing the things that they need to. Is mathematics or ELA the most important issue at the moment for that student? Absolutely not. But as teachers and educators, we have to realize, you know what? We are no longer 8 to 3 or whatever it may be saying, this is where you're supposed to be doing these things. No, we've expanded it to a 24/7 thing where, you know what, we can do learning whenever, however, whenever you want. This whole, I really see this as not just STEAM, but as education, as an educational ideology and pedagogy, that this is going to be a revolution of how things are being done. they're really going to change how teaching happens. I know that on the East Coast, the Northeast, they've already had discussions about removing snow days from the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is something I know as growing up in New York, that was the thing that you lived for.
Oh yeah.
In the winter, you waited for the snow day. You put the white sock inside out on your left foot on the night before to make sure that you got that snow day the next day. Like you do all of the idiosyncrasies. But now they're like, oh, they're having the conversation. There's no more need for snow days because we can just do remote learning instead. So I thought that was that's huge and I know that the kids are absolutely going to hate that. I know I hate that, but however, just as memories. But I mean, there's little steps like that we're finding ways to change education to go for the better. But you know what? Going back to the question about the big wins in STEAM for me is that I've been seeing there's a huge buy-in, not just from the students, but as a first-year STEAM teacher for the site in my school, I'm getting not just that buy-in where the kids are saying, "Oh, this is what we did in class. We had a lot of fun." I have the parents there as well, and with the parents being there at the same time, they're also buying into the ideas. They're buying into oh, you know what? This is important things to do. So it's fun whenever I go into some of these classes. I see parents sitting front and center and the kids over on the side. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, well, who's the focus? But I'm not going to say anything about it because the thing is that I would much rather have the parents and the students together, learning together, doing these projects together, because that's the whole purpose, is that collaboration, the 4 C's. And using the 4 C's and being able to say, you know what? It might not be within your peers, but if you can do that with your family, even better.
Yeah.
And these students and these families that sometimes, like we said, a home is to sleep, work is to go to. And we've been fine. And now we're doing these work and also sleeping in the same room essentially half the time, is that we've had to find new ways and new ideas to actually go with and change and find new things to do. So we've been doing the things that Renee has been talking about. I haven't made the kits yet, but just even yesterday, I was like, I needed a fun little project. And I called up Jesus and he gave me the idea of he said, you know, make some Play-Doh. And I was very reluctant about, you know what? Does everyone have it? Does everyone not? I don't know. I said, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. So we went for it. I had about 80 fourth graders in a Zoom with me. And we all, oh yeah, that's a whole nother story.
No second moderator?
No second. It's all me.
Mute all.
Legendary.
You know what? There's a hotkey for that now. There's a hotkey for that one. That one, because you know what? They get excited and it's like, I'm like, my deaf ears, I have to go like that real quick and just take all my headphones off because it's just so loud sometimes. But you know what? A loud room's a good room for me.
Yeah.
But the nice part is that I get to mute the loud room without actually turning off the lights or all my other strategies.
That's true.
Whole brain teaching it not needed in that sense anymore. I can just mute them. So we made Play-Doh. And if you say, you know what, how do you do that? It is 1 cup flour, 1/2 cup salt, 1/2 cup water. And that's it. Using those 3 ingredients and mixing around, it's chemistry. You're doing chemistry, you're making Play-Doh, you're having a lot of fun, but then also you have the kids running from where they're learning. You're getting them out of their seats even when you're in a Zoom. And by having them move around and do these different activities, I had kids go, and for me, I was like, you know, I'm only going to tell them 1 ingredient at a time. And by going 1 ingredient at a time, I had them going back and forth. And if I didn't have the parents in my Zoom already, they're like, what is going on? You're supposed to be in class. And then they get interested. And it's all about that buy-in at this point, where I created that buy-in by actually having them move around. Their parents think, no, you're supposed to be in front of your computer doing that thing and listening to the teacher. And we have to break that mold. And that's the big win, is that, you know what, these parents are understanding, hey, they don't need to be sitting in front of their computer 24/7 to do learning. A lot of the learning comes from within. But with that, it was interesting because, just like Renee said, not everyone has every material. So, but to me, I turned that into a positive, saying, you know what? I had a kid who only had almond flour, or another kid that only had pancake mix. They didn't have all-purpose flour. And you know what? That turned into a whole different story of saying, you know what? We're changing that up. Let's see how that works. Even though that kid was not able to make perfect Play-Doh, they still were able to understand, you know what? Because of this is the reasoning why.
I love your comment, Paul, that the learning has to come from within. And for that reason, I've really taken to the 5 C's now. You know, I take the 4 C's and then I add the C of curiosity. I think that's so important. And for all of you as STEAM educators, I mean, this is your bread and butter, right? Just thriving on stoking that curiosity in our learners. We are almost out of time, but I want to ask if we can make a lightning round. I'm thinking about teachers who have maybe watched with us this far on the replay or live, and maybe they're looking for more resources. Can you take about 10, 20 seconds to just quickly talk about what are your 1 or 2 sources for inspiration outside of your own work? Because we'll end with that, how viewers can find and connect with you. But where do you go to get inspired? Do you go to Facebook groups, a website, a blog, Twitter, somebody on Twitter? What are your sources for STEAM inspiration? Renee?
Twitter, 100, 1000%. I mean, that's how I got blessed with knowing you guys.
Yeah. And what are the best hashtags? Is it just STEM and STEAM? Are there other hashtags that we should look around for?
You know what? I just find that I get what I need from my amazing PLN. I mean, you know, my feed is teachers, it's STEAM teachers, it's classroom gen ed teachers, you know, and just when I need some inspiration, I just start to scroll, and, you know, invariably there will be a picture of something that just grabs me, and it just sort of spirals from there. But definitely Twitter has taken me to the next level. Thank you, Twitter.
And Twitter delivers that when you actually thoughtfully curate your following list, right? When you follow the right people. If you fill it with celebrities and politics, then that's what'll show up on your feed. So you got to make sure you keep it to those people that will inspire your practice. Jesus, what about you?
She already said it, Twitter. The thing that I do a little different though is I follow other hashtags that are just straight technology, because my challenge for myself is how can I bring that's not supposed to maybe be seen as an educational tool into the classroom. One of those is VR, and there's a sculpting tool in VR. It's amazing, and it can be pulled out and 3D printed, which that already spoke to my heart. So, but with Twitter, same thing. I don't follow anybody else, just teachers, and it's become like the teacher go-to place. Facebook, I think it can be used, but I see Twitter more like it's faster.
Yeah.
And you don't get any mix-ups, because I feel like some teachers they share some teaching things on Facebook, but they also share like some personal views or stories about themselves. Not that bothers me, but I mean, if you're looking for just straight teaching stuff, I feel like teachers that go on Twitter, that's usually what they're doing. Man, every once in a while you'll see some kind of political thing or something else. Okay, but that's where I've met tons of people. That's where I've seen and gotten new ideas, been inspired. That's how I met Renee. Paul I met at Spring Q, and now it's bad luck for me, we're friends. So, but yeah, I would say go to Twitter, and if you're like, well, how does it work? Email one of us. We'll explain it to you. And I think that's the other thing. If you're already on Twitter, you're like, man, I really want to ask that teacher a question. What's the harm that could happen? You ask, okay, they never replied. Okay, well, they're too busy. Or they start this conversation with you. You're like, okay, I didn't know it was that easy to obtain this or start using it, or now it gave me a different idea. All you have to do is take your shot. That's it.
Yeah, no, well said. Thank you. And Paul, what about you? Are you Twitter only as well?
I am, but you know what? Did Jesus take up all my 20 seconds that I was allotted on that one?
Go for
it. No, you know what? Twitter has been the bread and butter. I mean, there's no other way to say Twitter following only educators. And if you need to make a second professional account, there's no problem doing that. If it isn't your name, you could always just do an alias or whatever you may want to do. But having that second account where you just are straight up, this is education, this is my PLN, because and the reasoning why I feel like, and I'm going over my 20 seconds, I know, but Jesus did, so I get to.
I feel like a debate moderator here.
Oh, absolutely. So the big reasoning why we have to go to Twitter is because if you were a 5th grade or a 1st grade teacher, you have your PLN in your building.
Mhm.
You have 3-4 people teaching the same classes, doing the same curriculum, all in the same building. You could go and talk to them right there. As STEAM educators, it's normally 1 per building, if that.
True.
And for us, we have to be able to communicate with people outside of our driving distance or outside of our building, because we are a far and few between. And having that Twitter, you get to communicate with people. I know that we, Jesus and I, we started a 3D printing chat a while back, and that we never kept up on. That we connected with a lot of people off of the East Coast, but then also Australia. And so we were able to connect with people from all the way around the world, saying, you know what, this is what they're doing in Australia with 3D printing. How do we do it here? But that's because there's not that many out there. It's limited. So it's been really great to be able to say, you know what, Twitter has been that professional realm to be able to do that. But also, if you dabble in a couple of subreddits on Reddit, there's some pretty good teaching subreddits as well, where you can go around and find different ideas or things like that. And like Jesus said, he follows technology threads on Twitter. I follow technology threads on Reddit, and I'm able to apply that what is being done at an industrial level, and you scale it to where you need to in your classroom.
Awesome. Well, I want to give a quick shout out to George Valenzuela, who I was hoping would be able to join us today. He's unfortunately involved in another commitment, but we'll get him on another time. Fantastic STEAM and PBL educator. And of course, Chris Woods, another guest of the podcast. He just came out with Daily STEM, the book. So look forward to digging into that. Yeah, Chris is just, he may not be as strong on the 3D printing side as the three of you, and maybe not quite the same wheelhouse, but I find in terms of just inspiring the STEAM habits of mind, there are few better that just sort of push me on Twitter. So really,
he makes it look easy, and it makes me mad. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So Chris, we appreciate you.
Hey, Chris makes it an all day, every place kind of easy thing. You're right.
It's like, stop, Chris. We get it, Chris. You're great. All right. I'm throwing it in my face, Chris.
Yeah. Well, I want to respect your time, and I so appreciate all of you joining me here today. I want to end with this. How can viewers connect with you and get to know your work a little bit better? You're all doing such great stuff. Renee, besides Twitter, and I'll make sure to get that the Twitter handle back up here, where else can viewers go?
You know what? I just keep things simple. Twitter's the place to go for me. And, direct messages also work. I'm one of those kind of Twitterers that will respond to any teacher in need. So, yeah, that's the place to go for me.
Thank you, Renee. Jesus?
Same thing, Twitter. I have a blog that I need to update. I haven't put a new tutorial in quite some time. MrWordPressClass.weebly.com. I mean, you can find it on Twitter, so if you're not sure how to spell it, just follow me on Twitter. And then there's another website, but I'm going to let Paul talk about it because I don't want to steal his thunder all the time. So.
Of course you don't. Yeah, so other than his blog that he's been pulling all that information from, you can find me on Twitter, but then also we do have a 3D printing website where we have tutorials and other lesson plans and different presentations that we've done on it at easyas123d.org. So easyas123d.org. We have a couple of our tutorials, just different how-tos, what to buy, how to get started. So that's just a quick little way to, if you're curious about what you need to do for 3D printing, you go there. And that's how to get started.
Renee, Jesus, Paul, thank you so much for joining me this morning. You three inspire me. You sparked my thinking and ignited my practice. And I hope it was good for you as well to just share ideas and conversation this morning. Keep on STEAM learning in that distance environment. Keep on inspiring kids. And I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.